Calling all cars.
Calling all cars. Attention all cars. Broadcast 168.
Be on the lookout for a white Elantra, any white Elantra that we can claim as suspect vehicle 1.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Let's listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I am here to discuss the Idaho 4 case, and I'm here to annihilate another aspect of this case. You know, it's interesting. When the prosecution replied to the defense's motion in limine to exclude vehicle identification, they beat their chest like, King Kong and included the FBI's exhaustive efforts in vehicle identification of suspect vehicle 1 in the King Road neighborhood. They went through all the trouble of listing every video sighting of suspect vehicle 1 and, not to mention, every camera that caught it, every headlight that shined on a building, every headlight that shined on a tree. And they attempted to prove that it was the car that they attached pictures to the reply. They attempted to prove that that was the vehicle that they were absolutely identifying. As I'm going to show you in this video, that by them doing that, they absolutely have annihilated their own case. No doubt. And the defense has known this for a long time. I've showed you many times a filing by the defense back in 2023 where they clearly state that the prosecution, law enforcement is relying on video of a video taken of a vehicle going the wrong way at the wrong time on Ridge Road. And it turns out there's 2 cameras on Ridge Road, according to the FBI. And one of them catches a vehicle just driving on Louder Avenue that they can't really get a good view of. But one of them catches a vehicle actually turning off of Louder south on the Ridge Road at 401. Now, I'd gone through this in the past, and I thought Ashley Jennings was saying that vehicle turned at 329. It wasn't. It was 401. But because they're using that vehicle that turned south on Ridge Road at 401, and they included everything else in their report, they have absolutely annihilated themselves. And the defense knows this, and they've known it for a long time, and I'm sure they're chomping at the bit for the judge to admit the suspect vehicle 1 identification. Setting them up to slap them down, folks. Wait till you see this one. Okay, so they've got a vehicle. Let's see. Let's do this. So they've got a vehicle coming through here at 326, and it's caught on a home camera here, here, and here. 3 different home cameras, according to the FBI report. And that vehicle comes up, goes left here, and they capture it on this camera. And then it comes around here, and they capture it on this camera. And then it comes up and down, and we see it going across Linda Lane right here. And then it pulls into the neighborhood at 3:30, drives down, comes around the Queen Road Apartments, back up, out, and goes like this. Now, they say that vehicle, according to the FBI report, comes down here and goes down this way, but then they can't see it for a while, so they don't know really what happens to it after that. But somehow it ends up, or they see headlights coming up here, and then the vehicle goes in and supposedly does the same thing, and then comes around. And then this time they say the vehicle comes down, goes down here, because there's a camera right here that's capturing the vehicle. There's two cameras. One's on the house, and it says the other one's on its shop. I can't find a shop. I'll show you that in a minute. But they're saying this second time it comes down and it goes this way, and then they see its headlights turn around and come back and go back up this way. So, and then they're going to go through a myriad of headlights shining on trees and other things, but the only cameras that they're going to list after these three of the vehicle coming in on Indian Hills, this one time on Louder and Steiner, and then they're going to list this shop and this house right here several times, and then 1122 King Road and 1330 Linda Lane. They never again mention 1320 Linda Lane, and I can tell you after doing this deep dive, the reason there are 30 minutes missing from the Linda Lane footage, the 1320 Linda Lane from 3:30 until 4 o'clock, is because they cut that stuff out and threw it away because it didn't match up to their determinations here. But I'm going to show you where they have made a colossal mistake, because this camera, just the first time coming in, this camera, and this camera, just the first time coming in, but they heavily rely on this camera down here on Paradise Drive. They heavily rely on the camera. There's two cameras at 1125 Ridge Road in these apartments. They heavily rely on the camera just catching a glimpse of the vehicle going this way. They heavily rely on 1330 Linda Lane, which we've all seen a trillion times, and we know what they can rely on with that one. But then they also heavily rely on 1122 King Road, or 1112 King Road. But I'm going to show you where unequivocally I could go through this entire thing and show you about 50 things that are complete BS based on their headlights shining on trees. But instead of doing that, I'm going to show you the one thing that proves that the vehicle that they identified as suspect vehicle from those pictures is a vehicle that has absolutely nothing to do with this crime whatsoever. And I will prove it to you in this video. And let me show you how I'm going to prove it. But first of all, you got to understand that the cameras relied on heavily are this one right here at Paradise and Ridge. So it comes down and there's an intersection here. They heavily rely on two cameras on these Ridge Road apartments. One that focuses on the street that doesn't get a very good view, and the other one that actually gets a good view that focuses straight on the street there. They heavily rely on 1330 Linda Lane, which we know they can't determine anything, and then they heavily rely on 1112 King Road, where the video is very distorted, where they can't really see anything. So let me show you something profound that I found in this FBI report. Okay, so where they show us these vehicles where they've tried to identify a vehicle, this one right here is taken off of 1125 Ridge Road. And this is the one of the vehicle at 4:01 a.m. Now, I was wrong when I interpreted what Ashley Jennings said in court. I thought she was saying 3 minutes before we seen it, meaning 3 minutes before 3:30. But it turns out they were relying on it at 4:01. And it's the only time that they capture this vehicle going south off of Louder onto Ridge Road. And that's where this camera footage comes from. That's where this camera footage comes from. And that's where this camera footage comes from. The next clearest picture they have from any of their cameras are the ones on 1112 King Road, which we all know shows us pictures like this and like this that are not legible. So why would they rely so much on these? Because it actually gave them some clear photos of this vehicle. As I'm going to show you, though, based on their own FBI report, this vehicle right here is certainly not the vehicle that pulls in at 4:04 for the last pass into the King Road neighborhood. It's impossible for it to be. All right, so I've been through this entire FBI report based on everything that they've put together in this, and it's almost hilarious. Right, so they go through and they cite 763 Indian Hills at 326, 755 at 326, 1311 Main Street, that's the gas station there on Louder and Steiner at 328. And then at 329, this is a camera at 1125 Ridge Road that just catches the vehicle coming up Louder and continue on to Taylor like that. And that Ridge Road right here is these apartments, and it's just catching a vehicle driving by. So not a very good angle on it. And it's 32902, 32904. Vehicle continues on the Louder Avenue as the road curves north towards Taylor. So no good views of it there. And then 1320 Linda Lane, they see it going across the road. That's the last mention of 1320 Linda Lane, even though based on their report, they should have seen it on 1320 Linda Lane about several more times, and they never mention it because that video footage is missing. But then it goes into 1112, and then when you start to dig into it, here's where it gets really interesting, because they dive in hard on 1330 Linda Lane, which we've all watched a trillion times. And look what they try to say every time they discuss a pass. They say a vehicle matching the description of suspect vehicle 1 travels east along the north side of Queen Road. The vehicle turns south along the east side of the building. So they're saying here's how we always look at it. Here is the camera facing this way, and here is Queen Road Apartments, and we see that vehicle come around and go this way. So that's what they're saying when the vehicle turns south along the side of the building. So it's coming this way, east, then it turns south, and then we all know from that point you can't see anything about that vehicle and you don't know what it does. But then they try to say, then turns west along the south side of the building. The vehicle matching the description exits the frame traveling west in the direction of the King Road home. They can't see any of that from that camera, and you and I both know it. So this second whole part of this description, anytime they bring up 1330, is a lie. It's just a lie. It's crazy. And then, instead of actual video, headlights shine on the upper exterior of 1127 King Road, indicating a vehicle turned north. You tell me the headlight shining on a building indicates what a vehicle's doing and which vehicle it is? Come on. Vehicle, now 1122, all right, vehicle matching the description, heads westbound. Now they can actually see this, but it's a distorted video as I just showed you. And then they're basing everything on headlights. Everything I have in blue is them just seeing headlights on trees. But then right here is where they make a giant mistake. At 33513 at a shop at 451 Paradise Drive, a vehicle matching the description of vehicle 1, it doesn't even say suspect vehicle, it says vehicle 1 travels south on Ridge Road, turning westbound onto Paradise Drive. I'm going to show you that here in just a minute. But they have two cameras. One is a shop, and the other one is on the front door of the residence. And again, Paradise Drive, a vehicle matching the description of vehicle 1 continues westbound on Paradise Drive. And then headlights are seen on Walenta 3 minutes later. So they don't know what the vehicle did for 3 minutes because it's only 2,000 feet from there to where they're saying they seen it next. But I'm going to skip a lot of this and save you a little time. I might do a super breakdown for you at some point. But when you get all the way down to here, so here's the shop on Paradise Drive again. I don't know how many times they bring up Paradise Drive, but it's to their own detriment. A vehicle matching the description travels south on King Road, then east on Queen at 1112. We got him in the Linda Lane BS again. And then headlights shine. 1112 sees it pulling out. 359. Headlights are seen traveling south on Walenta Drive behind 1119 King Road. 359 and 4 seconds. All right, so a minute and 10 seconds later, headlights are seen in traveling north on Walenta Drive behind 1119 King Road. So here's the King Road residents. They pull out. This is Taylor into the Walenta. They're saying they see these headlights going south and then coming back north. And then a vehicle matching the description of Vehicle 1 travels south, then east on Louder in a minute and 45 seconds later. Now, because they eliminated the 1320 Linda Lane camera footage, we can't see that vehicle going across 1320 Linda Lane, so we have to assume they're telling us the truth. But watch where they colossally mess up. At 401:43, at 1125 Ridge Road, apartment 108, a vehicle matching the description of Vehicle 1 turns from eastbound on Louder Avenue onto southbound on Ridge Road. Turns from eastbound on Louder Avenue onto southbound on Ridge Road at 401. So that means it's coming down. It comes off of Taylor, comes down Louder, and it's going this way. It's going to turn eastbound. This is going eastbound this way. Then it's going to turn southbound. So this is where they get that wonderful camera footage when it makes this southbound turn at 401 and 43 seconds. But then something interesting happens. The next sighting of this vehicle is at 404 and 20 seconds. And that's when headlights are seen traveling north on Walenta. So from 401:43 to 404:20, we're expected to believe that this vehicle that turned south onto Ridge Road drove down, followed the same path back up, and then into the King Road neighborhood. Except for one thing that they have colossally annihilated themselves with right here. And I believe the defense has known this for so long because it was in a filing a long time ago. But just remember this. 401:43 heading south on Ridge Road to 404:20 headlights traveling north on Walenta. And let's see if they provided us a map for this. I bet you they did. Let's see. Where are these maps they gave us? Where are you at? You must be up this way. They gave us some maps here. Uh-oh. Is this it? I think this is, let's see. Where's the map that they want us to believe here? Not that. Oh, yep, it's this one. Whoopsie. All right. Oh, now this is a FBI exhaustive report, y'all. Exhaustive report. But right here is where they're showing you that it's 0.3 of a mile. Or 3 minutes, 0.6 of a mile, 3 minutes from here to here. And where they've caught this vehicle at 401, they say it came down here, was heading eastbound, and then turned this way at 401, and it captures that vehicle, the only one that they get those 3 clear pictures of. And then they say the vehicle came down here and came up, and then it's seen in the trees, the headlights seen in the trees right here by 1112 King. But the last thing they mention is seeing this vehicle right here at 401 going this way. And then the next thing is seeing it in the trees over here. Now I want you to look at this map based on what I just showed you and based on this little mark right here where it shows the Paradise Road cameras, and tell me what's missing in their scenario. Well, I'll tell you what's missing. This camera that they logged every other headlight and vehicle sighting on, for some reason, is totally not even brought up in this particular scenario. So that means that when this vehicle turns south onto Ridge Road at 401 and they got all that good camera footage, it never made it down here to Paradise and Ridge, and it never turned around and went back out this way either, because if it had, this camera would have caught it, and if it went the other way, this camera would have caught it, and it never did. So what happened to that vehicle they're claiming is suspect vehicle 1 at 401? It pulled in right here and it never came out. So let's take us a little journey. They're saying it came down louder, and right, excuse me, right here at 401, it makes a right. And this is the only time the vehicle ever went this way, according to the FBI's exhaustive report. And this is 1125 Ridge Road, and it's an apartment complex, and apparently had 2 cameras on it. So it came down here, and one of the cameras finally caught a really good view of the vehicle. But as it would have continued driving, let me show you. It wouldn't have had to have gone too far. Right around this corner. And you see, it would have had to have made a right here to go to the King Road residence, or it could have went straight this way and then made a right. But you see, either way, it wouldn't matter, because right here is this house that they've listed, 451 Paradise Drive, that has 2 cameras. And you can see there's one that way and there's one pointed that way. So if that vehicle did like they said it would, that camera, like it caught every other time, would have caught it coming and making this right. And if it hadn't made that right, it certainly would have caught it going this way, but it doesn't. So that means that that vehicle never made it down this far. But more to the point, if it never made it down this far, and it didn't turn around and go back the way that it had came, because if it had, it would have been caught again on that camera. And they only have one side of that vehicle, so we know it didn't. So there's only a few places that car could have went. It could have went to this house right here, or it could have pulled into the Ridge Road apartments right here and parked over here, or it quite possibly, I'm trapped. What's happened? Or it quite possibly could have turned on this road, although you would think the camera might have caught it if it did that, but then again, who knows? Why am I stuck here? All right, it won't let me go any further. All right, so it could have turned on this road, but again, that's a dead end, so it would have had to have parked down here somewhere. So basically, according to the FBI, this one time the vehicle came down this way, they captured the good footage of it, and the only place it could have went was this way, where the Paradise Drive camera would have caught it, and it did not. So it did not make it this far. So that means that that vehicle either turned right here and parked, or it pulled right in and parked at this house right here, or it pulled in right here and parked in these apartments somewhere. Sorry there, FBI, but you've failed again. The more and more that I look at some of this stuff, I think it's really just the defense baiting the prosecution to want to admit evidence that the defense knows they're going to be able to annihilate. And think about it. The defense has all those cameras in discovery. So if that vehicle didn't go past the shop there, and if it had, believe me, the FBI would have put it in that exhaustive report. Well, the defense will have the camera footage to prove that. And it didn't turn back around and go the other way because the FBI is saying it didn't. So they'll be able to unequivocally prove that the vehicle that they're claiming to be able to identify from camera footage is a vehicle that went into a spot and never came out. You would think they would be sharper than that, but you can bet they knew that didn't work, but they tried to take that puzzle, that little slot, and take their puzzle piece and go, well, it doesn't really fit. Let's just jam it in there and hope nobody notices. Well, give me a break. It's not too hard to notice some of these things, and the defense's investigators must be really sharp because they've been noticing it since 2023. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. And for those of you out there that still think that the state has a strong case against Brian Kohberger, think again and open your eyes. Pavarotti's out.